Hi, everybody. It's John Muir Laws, and I wanted to talk to you today about a project that I've been doing near my house that's really, really fun. I've been following a Douglas iris, and there are buds that are bursting out, coming into bloom, and wilting and changing, and it's really, really been fun to explore. So I wanted to show you my process and what I've got so far, and also to kind of walk through a demonstration of drawing an iris with you today. And so I think you're going to enjoy taking a look at this. This is a project that you can do at home. What I've done is I have, let's see if I have tied a twisty tie around the base of this iris right here. And so what I can do is just regularly come back, find the same iris, and track it through time. So let me show you what's happened so far. Let's see here. It's really pretty cool. So here we are in the Wayback Machine. I'm going to go to the first entry. So the first entry for this iris, well, actually we'll zoom in on this a little bit. First iris was on April 25th, and so there's a little cluster right here of 1, 2, 3 pods, and one of them has this large unopened spike right there. Right over here, right here, I have a completely unopened one, and down towards the base of these, they actually connect. So these were coming out of the same stalk. So I just drew and described what I saw. All this sort of purple explosion we see over here is just the pine cone leaking over from the previous page. But let me show you what happened. So this was on April 25th. Come out the next day, pow! Look at that. It is burst open with this. And look at the color change. It went from dark purple to this light lavender. And this little guy over here has this little tiny hint of purple poking through. Isn't that cute? Right there. Wow, that was a huge, huge change. And then we jump over to the next day. Oh, this is kind of fun too. See this little purple line right across here? That is, here's this Seedpod in cross section. So we're showing that right over there. This right here, the same flower one day later. This is on April 27th. And this little, this cross-section got in the way of this guy. So I redrew it down here a little bit larger and added some color to it. But look at how much more is, I'll slide that up. Look at how much more of that purple is visible. So that was at 11:30 in the morning. And then, before I went to, started to get dark, so this is at 7 p.m. at night. Same thing. Look at that change. So the top of it was here. It grew that much just in that one day. Isn't that neat? You know, if you don't think that plants move, but the minute you start drawing them and tracking them through time, there are these amazing changes that happen. So then, here we go. Now let's look at the next day. I'm going to, again, track back here. So not too many changes right in here. So these are, look at the positions of these petals here, kind of tilted down. The next day, they have curled up. Look at that. They've all curled up. And this little bud that was just out this high, it is shot up this far. Look at that. Still really tightly wrapped, but it was just down here. And now, that's one day's work. That's a day's work in the life of an iris. Well, the next day I come out and look at what has happened here, right? So this flower has wilted significantly. It's just curling up on itself. And this guy's a little bit wider, and I started to think, That's interesting. That was at 10:30 in the morning. And then I went out at 1 o'clock, and it was starting to unfurl a little bit more. And 4:30, even more. Okay, so come back a little bit later. This is at 6 p.m. So I'm just making quick sketches in ballpoint pen because I need to run in and take care of the kids. And then we went out for a little bit of an evening walk. And that was what it was at 6 p.m. And I came back home just to check on it, thinking, well, next morning, that's when it's going to burst. But look at what had happened during our walk. Bam! That thing has popped open. It's still kind of curled in on itself. And I also noticed that, like, wow, that is really small. But it had all burst out right when we went out on our walk. And so here, and I thought it was very interesting, small, dark flower. So I was thinking, isn't that neat? But these guys here, they had big flowers. And they were pale, and this is going to be a small, dark one, right? Oh, no, because you go the next day, here's the same flower. It has grown. It has actually gotten bigger. So I wonder if there's some way of like pushing more plant juice, like the way that butterfly wings unfurl. Does the same thing happen with iris petals? I don't know, but it seems significantly bigger. And more pale. Isn't that interesting? So bigger, pale. The next day, slide in over here. Look at this. All right, so not too much of a change in these lower structures here. So these are actually sepals. But look at what happened to the petals that were up here. See, those are the petals of the flower. People think that these are the iris petals, but no, those are the petals up there. This is actually a sepal. Look at this. The petals are all curled in here. So what's it going to be doing this morning? All right? So I am now actually out at 12:30 the next day, and I want everybody to decide what you think this is going to be doing before I sketch it, and let's go find out. All right? So down here, I'm going to draw this thing today. Oh, and look at this. This previous wilted flower was up like this, and then it was tilting over and tilting over. What's it going to be like today? We're going to check in on both these two, and I'm going to add them on the same page right here. When you give yourself a project like this, what happens is you then wake up the next day and you can't wait to get out there and explore what is going on with your little friends. Right. I'm going to start with a very pale ghost drawing. Normally I'm using that non-photo blue pencil, but it doesn't really show up on these gray toned papers. So I'll show you what I'm doing here is in this mechanical pencil, I have purple lead, and it's really fun to draw with. I can do things like, coloring question marks purple. But it actually shows up reasonably well on this. And what I do is I block in this basic shape. I'm going to actually have to draw a little bit heavier than I normally do so that you guys can see it. So there's that flower. And if that flower is there, I'm looking at the negative space here. This guy, this is going to be right over here. And barely enough room to fit this guy on, or her, fit this flower on. Yeah. Some time ago I got in the habit of saying guy as a general term for anything, and I'm trying to break myself of that habit to use more neutral terms, more scientifically accurate. So I'm just, if you see, I'm just loosely, lightly sketching in the shapes of, here's a pod, There's another pod that's back here. And there's another pod that's sticking up in here. This leaf thing is going to come that high. This one is going to come that high. All right. It really helps to block in what you're seeing before you get your big lines on the page. I don't want to have to worry about where is this sepal relative to this sepal over here once I'm drawing details. And so you can see the sepal here is now tilted up. This one here, I'll draw it in, tilt it up. So go over that other stem. That's actually not going to be a problem because I have gouache. I'll show you the magic of sketching with gouache in a moment. All right, so I've got actually enough information here, and with my light ghosting pencil. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm switching over just to a ballpoint pen. And now what I do is drawing an iris petal that's twisting and curling and doing all these weird things. You can't make this stuff up. You can't draw an iris from your imagination. A daisy, yeah, an iris, no way. What I do is I close one eye and I look at it and I just get myself to trust the shapes that I see. So I'm starting on the bottom of it, and it comes down. It's going to curl around this way, up flat, now up steeply. Here and over. So this is part of the sepal that is curling down towards me. All right. This is going to come down and comes up. There's a little down part over and back in. I mean, wow, that's weird. That's really weird. You know, it doesn't in my head feel like the way a sepal of one of these things should look. You just have to, in these sorts of situations, believe the shape. That one is, so it's coming towards me. Here are the tops of the petaloid pistil of the iris. So the pistil on an iris is this curved tube with the two flags on it. Here you see the two flags facing towards you. And there's one more over here. And these ones are flipped over like this. Now, here we go. I'm going to draw another big sepal. So we're going to come out, over, a little bit of a dip in. So every time there's a change in angle, I want to say out loud what I'm seeing. Now, a big steep dip in that goes up to a loop, a big steep. And actually, if you say things like that, like a big steep dip in that goes up to a loop, it helps you actually be able to record it, remember it. Now, this one's going to come around and in. And then there's the bump that comes from in here. And things sticking out and back in. Whoa. And so they're starting to really take on some interesting, bizarre shapes, these parts. Roll down, slight bump here. And here are, I wonder what the official botanical term for this structure I'm drawing right now is, this leafy green thing. So it's not the sepal. Is this a bract? This may be a bract. And I'm seeing some of the seed pod sticking out in here. Alright, so my flower then comes up here. And seed pod. I have a petal. So the petals, again, are these things. The petals were pointing up. They then started to hook down in. They now are all rolled up. Here. And wow, it's all rolled up. And a bump comes in like that. And wow. That's a huge change. Those things were just sticking up boldly. There's the other. This is just part of the, this petal there now just all curled down. What's happening over here? I have this sepal coming out. I have the petaloid pistil. Those two little banners. That petaloid pistil is still kind of keeping its structure. But let's see what this sepal is doing. In, over, up, straight, down with a little bit of overlap in here. It's going to come down. Up, I've got a little bit of a, this pen is starting to run out of ink. So that's really rolling up on itself. Wow, so I've got this sepal, sepal, sepal. What a change. What a change. Yesterday it was really looking kind of the way we think of an iris. Today, it's neat to see this thing kind of just on its way out. I often think that flowers, when they are not just, they're past that kind of state of perfect Hallmark card bloom, this is when they really are getting more personality and character. So here's a big seed pod, that one that I did the cross section of earlier. And it has, here we have this one. There is another pod sticking up here. There is another pod sticking up there. And this guy comes up. This one comes up and bowls out, and it curls down on itself, partly off my page. That used to be that big, bold flower that I had in those earlier sketches. And this one has come up. It is twisting. It's twisting. It's twisting. And there's another one that is behind it here. Those used to be iris flowers. Wow. What a change. What a change. And so I'm going to write 1 p.m. a second. Now I want to show you how I might add some gouache paint on these. Gouache, actually we're using gouache and watercolor together. I carry with me a small set of gouache paint, and I only have really light values and some magenta. And any dark values, I use my regular watercolors, but I'll sometimes do light values with this very opaque paint. It's water activated, just like watercolor is. But the difference is it's much more opaque. So I can come along here and I fill this in. And isn't that cool? I just covered up that little stem. An interesting thing about it is that it gets darker as it dries. So just watch this right in front of your face. This part is wet, that part is dried. You see that dark area in there? That is, let's zoom in on that, and you'll see watching paint dry with John Muir Laws. So you see that's it's getting darker right in front of your eyes. So this isn't a different color of paint. This is just the wet version. And there we are. So I'm starting with a little light base coat. Starting to see, if you look really carefully, you can see a little bit of the other lines poking through there. Another thing that happens is as this dries, it gets, oh, see, there's that neat contrast. You can see that lighter stuff on top. That just hasn't dried yet, but it will dry darker. So I wish gouache didn't do that, but it really, really helps to know that that is what it's going to do. That's just sort of a gouache thing. And just pedal back in here. And shortly I'll make this whole structure make a little bit more sense, but I'm just getting in a light layer of pale purple. And oh yeah, there's petals coming down in the background there. And do I want to have something coming out this way? Looking at my flower, yes. One more line wants to be drawn with my pen. All right, so I have a little purple undercoat. Thank you, Gouache. And then I'm going to add on top of that some watercolor, and I will be putting in a little bit more gouache. Iris have these up here in the petals. See, I did this all purple, but because I'm using gouache, I can say I want there to be a kind of fan-shaped white zone right back here. Same with right here, sort of center longer, and then on the sides, smaller, coming like that. That's going to be these little white marks in there. Now, I've got my sock on my wrist here. I'm going to switch over to regular watercolor. Oh, and I'll actually maybe a little bit more gouache. I'm going to put some gouache on some of these green parts. Here we go. With my brush, what I do is I often will roll it on the palette here, and that gives me a nice sharp point. With watercolor, it's easy to make things darker, not lighter. So I'm putting in some values with this gouache that are going to be lighter than I really want them to be, but they'll sort of establish an overall greenness to this area, and then I'll get some regular watercolor in on top of those. These I want to be a yellower green. There we go. Now, I think I'm ready. Ready to bring in my watercolor here. Sorry about that big motion there. All right, here we go. One color that I have on my palette is naphthalide maroon. It's this it's a lovely, very iris base color here. I'll put some of that in on these lower parts of the iris. And I'm going to take a little bit of purple, and there is on the edges of these white zones here, there's a little bit of purple around there, a little bit of purple. I'm going to grab some yellow. That's good. And put it right down the middle. And because it is going on top of that white gouache, it really shines. If I tried to do that just on gray toned paper, it would not come out so well. These little bright yellow marks right in there. Now, I'm going to jump back to this little purple pencil for a moment and get veined. Oh man. This iris, a beautiful structure. Probably thinks this song is about it. So I'm drawing in some of the veins that go across the surface of the sepal here. Yeah, you could do that with a very fine brush, but this is a lot easier. Now look, on this little bit of sepal pointing towards me here, I am going to curl these up. I want people to see that this is a rounded structure. And there are more veins coming down here. I don't have to get in every vein in exactly the right place, but I want to get a general sense of the veininess of that. Now look at this. This is my white Prismacolor pencil. Yeah, I love this pencil. This is where a lot of this drawing is going to start to pop out for me, I hope. Getting a few little highlights in on the top of this thing. And this edge here gets a little hit of white. And that, this little bit of detail in there really helps pop that. Let's zoom more. Helps pop that forward. A little bit of detail back here. This edge of that curving petal there gets some. This edge of this iris will too. Play that sepal. And I want there to be a little bit of light hitting in here, so between some of these veins, I'm just going to put a little bit of white. All right. Another thing I can do to help show some of the structure that's going on in here. This is this zebra, flexible tip zebra pen. My daughters call this the Mark pen after Mark Simmons, who gave us our first Mark pens. My daughter really remembers him and getting to meet him. He made a great impact on her. Just a sweet little story. She saw him using this pen, and I had used it too. She noticed him using it, and she said, "Wow, I really like what you do with that." And without missing a beat, he just turned around and handed her the pen out of his hand. She still has it. Running low on ink. Actually, maybe we're on to another generation of it, but it's important to her. And so we still call these the Mark pens. So a little bit of a heavier line in some of that area up front pops that part forward. And do the same with this part of this cracked-ish thing. There we go. Now, get some darker values into this. Keep looking up at the real plant. Where is it dark? Where is it light? Towards the outer edges here. Here. Oops. Oh, I need to zoom back the other way so that you can follow along more. These little bases turning yellow. It's interesting. A few little hints of some yellow marks in those. These are pretty pale. A few little purple marks wrapped around them. So putting in a bit more gouache. This one has more purple in it than the others. It's been in bloom more recently. Now, this bit gets a little bit of green down the middle. You can see the outside edges of this. Very good. And there are some browns along this edge. Two marks here. And a little bit of purple. I'm going to zoom in more and come back with the white colored pencil just to suggest a few little places. There are a few bumps on this because there's places where there's seeds below. This edge gets a little bit of white. And a little bit of white here along this edge. Here. It's neat the way the white colored pencil just really can also add shine, crisps this thing up. And there the drawing's just about done. The there is a, so this is a bunch of information recorded with drawings, but remember you've got words, you've got pictures and numbers, all those tools to help you be able to describe what you see. If you're just relying on the pictures, there's a danger that you can kind of just get wrapped around the axle of trying to just make a pretty picture. And you want to also use the words to emphasize things that you think are really important and show what's going on. So I really like that these sepals have turned up. So before it was at an angle like this, down like this, and this one was down at an angle like this, and so I'm going to draw little arrows showing. Oh, here's a neat trick for arrows. I want to get this pointing in the right direction. So first, just give yourself a little dot. And then that helps you aim your arrow right where you want it to be. And over here, Amelia. So, oh, it's Carolyn. Hey there. That's okay. Thank you for telling me, though. So I'm going to write in words here that the sepals. That's okay. The sepals are curling up. And the petals curling down. So you see how that emphasizes kind of the action that's going on here. And wilted petal twisting down. Wilted petal twisting down. Alrighty. Now, I'm wondering, will this petal here curl up into a ball? Will this flower curl into a ball like the others? Sometimes I make my little arrows with a little swoop to them. I think that makes them not sort of stand out as kind of more clear, as that they're a little kind of directional arrow that doesn't get confused with some of the straight lines of part of this. What else can we ask here? I want to intentionally see if I can ask some questions. Hey, I've got an idea. I'm going to measure the seed pod of this flower here, so that I can get a change in that as it grows. Feel down here, so that is roughly, I don't want inches. About 30 millimeters. So I've got Seedpod. So here, $30 millimeters. It would have been interesting if I had kind of tracked that over time. I can go get it going forward from now, but fortunately I can't go back in time. But it's nice to kind of get that first record. Now I can just have a little bit of fun. I like these arrows. I'm going to make them purple because I can. Put some emphasis on my big changes. And what do I think is the most interesting here? I think these sepals curling up is really cool, so that gets a bonus exclamation point. That's purple. That's fun. That is the next stage of this iris. But of course, that's not the end of the game. That's just what's going on right now. Oh, one other thing I can do. I'm going to make these guys back here a little bit more pale. These guys, just push them back in value a little bit. And I put it on more opaque than I knew I would need. Or not opaque, it looked much more pale than I knew I would need. But knowing that it would kind of lighten as it dried and become a little bit more transparent because it's gouache, I wasn't worried about that. And so it's kind of come through to just about where I want it. So this is my next page. So you can see that I've been, you've got changes. Tracking stability and change in things that we see around us is a big part of kind of large-scale questions in science that you can observe. So looking for rates of change. How do things change around you? Your journal is an incredible place to do that, to look for stability and change. And so here we're seeing all these changes just day to day to day to day to day. What changes are there going on in other living things around you? What about non-living things? Sometimes non-living things, the rates of change are slower and harder for us to pick up. But it's all worthy of thinking about and looking for. So I hope that this was fun. I hope that this was a useful little journey into kind of my brain and my process. This is just one of the projects I've got going on right now. So I'm tracking the iris. What else can you do while sheltering in place? I'm tracking the mold that's growing across an orange that we have in our home. I'm also tracking the changes in a little onion that has sprouted. So this is my little onion friend, and I got measurements of different parts, and that's been really fun to look at. We put it in water. My daughter decided, instead, we were about to cut this open and eat it, and she wanted it as a pet. So this is Carolyn's pet, and so we've got it in a little jar of water, and it started to sprout. Roots, I think I'm going to have to measure those again today. The other day, the longest one was about 23 millimeters long. We'll see how long the longest one is today. And I'm suspecting that these little roots going into the water on our onion friend are going to grow really rapidly. Over here, I have, on different dates, the length of this part compared to this part. My thinking was that I thought that this part would grow fast and this part would grow more slowly. I don't really see that going on, but it's going to be neat. I'm going to kind of collect a little bit more data and then graph that out here. It'll help me kind of see those patterns. So look for change and see what's going on around you. And I think that that'll be a really fun element for you to bring into your own nature journaling process. There you go. So, I'm John Muir Laws. This is the Nature Journal Club. You can do it too. It's a lot of fun. Keep safe and keep sketching, and I'll see you in the field. Take care, everybody.